Before the story begins, not every hero wears a badge. Some just have 4 legs and a memory they never forget. This is the story of a grieving widow and the retired German shepherd who refused to let her fade into silence. Like this video if you believe healing can come from unexpected places. Share it with someone who's ever been saved by a loyal companion. Save this story for the days when you need to believe in second chances. And subscribe for more powerful, true stories that prove love never comes too late. The townspeople called her the woman in the blue coat. Every morning, like clockwork, she opened the rusted front gate of her weathered cottage and placed 2 biscuits on the low stone wall, one for a dog that hadn't come back in years, and one for the grief she still fed in silence. Her name was Margaret Whitlow, 82 years old, a retired librarian with soft white curls, thick reading glasses, and hands that always smelled faintly of chamomile and old books. She lived alone at the edge of Penrose Hill, where the woods whispered in the wind and the postman never lingered. Neighbors said she was just waiting. For what? No one knew. Until one frost-bitten morning, a shadow moved beyond the trees. It was large, cautious, watching. Then it stepped into the light and Margaret's world shifted. A German shepherd, scarred, starved, and limping, but with eyes that knew her. His name had once been Rex. He wasn't always a shadow in the trees or a ghost in the cold. He was once a proud police K9, sharp, loyal, and trained to protect. Assigned to Officer Thomas Whitlow, Margaret's only son. Together, they patrolled the rougher neighborhoods of Birmingham, where danger hid in plain sight and trust was a rare currency. Rex wasn't just a partner. He was family. He was there when Thomas missed Christmas dinner, when Margaret's husband passed, and her heart grew heavier. He sat quietly by her feet during long visits, occasionally resting his head on her lap like he knew she needed the warmth, more than she admitted. But then came the night that shattered everything. A drug bust gone wrong. A dark alley, 3 suspects, 1 gunshot. Thomas didn't make it. Rex had taken to bullets, trying to protect him, for days. He refused food. He howled at the door, bit anyone who tried to separate him from Thomas's blood-stained jacket. Eventually, the force deemed him too aggressive to return to duty, too broken to rehabilitate. They said he escaped during transfer. Margaret never believed it. She thought he ran, back to the only home he knew. But he never arrived, so she waited. She opened the gate. She left the biscuits, every single day. That winter morning, the biscuits were gone. Both of them. Margaret blinked in disbelief, her trembling hand hovering over the empty plate. A trail of wet paw prints led across the frost-covered path, looping once around the garden bench, then disappearing into the woods. For a brief second, her breath caught. Could it be? Later that afternoon, a low growl stirred from the hedges, not hostile, protective. Margaret stepped slowly toward the sound, her old bones creaking, heart pounding like it hadn't in years. There he was, older, thinner, one ear torn, but unmistakable. Rex, she whispered, voice cracking with age and wonder. The dog froze, his golden brown eyes locked with hers. He didn't wag his tail. He didn't run. He simply stared as if searching her face for proof that this was real. Then, in one broken motion, he limped forward. Margaret sank to her knees, tears slipping down her cheeks, arms open. He collapsed into her embrace with a soft whimper, the sound of years of pain unraveling into trust. And for the first time in a decade, the woman in the blue coat didn't leave 2 biscuits on the wall. Just one, for Rex. From that day on, Rex never left her side. Every morning, Margaret filled his old silver bowl with warm chicken broth and a pinch of rice. And every evening, he lay by the fireplace, one eye open, guarding her slippers like they were crown jewels. The neighbors talked. Of course, is that the Rex? The one from the Anderson fire? Didn't he vanish years ago? Margaret ignored the whispers. She knew who he was, not the medal-winning K9, not the legend, just her Rex. And together, they carved out a rhythm, walked slow ones, to match her pace. Gardening, she trimmed roses while he dug up moles. Tea her with 2 sugars, him with half a biscuit dipped in warm milk. But it wasn't all peaceful. Some nights, Rex would wake in a cold sweat, snarling at the shadows. Margaret would soothe him gently, whispering stories of stars and quiet. licks until the shaking stopped. Other days, he'd limp so badly she had to carry him into the house, whispering, "You saved others. Let me save you now." And over time, the house felt different, lighter, less hollow. There were no more meals eaten in silence, no more empty chairs across the table, no more forgotten birthdays or unopened letters, because Rex remembered everything, especially her. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning. Margaret was dozing in her armchair, knitting half a sweater for a neighbor's newborn when Rex bolted. A bright tears perked, body rigid. A second later, the sirens came, distant at first, then louder, closer. Rex ran to the window, growling low. Margaret followed, confused, until she saw the smoke curling into the sky, thick and black just beyond the trees. Hemlock Hill. That was where the Martins lived. A young couple, 3 kids under 6, and Margaret remembered just yesterday they'd waved at her from their garden. Without thinking, she opened the door, but Rex was already gone. He bounded across the lawn like a shot, leaping fences, tearing through underbrush, a streak of gray and black against the amber morning. Margaret tried to follow. Her old legs couldn't match him, but she called the fire brigade, breathless, pointing toward the hill. "They've got kids, please, just hurry." By the time help arrived, Rex had already broken through the back door. Neighbors watched in awe as, one by one, 3 soot-covered children stumbled out of the smoke, guided by a barking shepherd with a limp. Rex went in again, a second time, and a third. He didn't stop until everyone was out, and then collapsed in the grass, smoke in his lungs, paws torn raw, tail still wagging. Margaret reached him before the paramedics did. She fell to her knees, cradling his head. "You found them," she whispered. "You saved them all." And Rex, ever the soldier, gave a single huff, then closed his eyes. The fire was front-page news by morning. Retired police dog rescues children from blaze. Hero shepherd saves family. Collapses after final rescue. Margaret's phone rang non-stop. Reporters, news crews, even city officials. They all wanted to see the dog who didn't give up. But Rex didn't care about cameras. He lay in a small animal hospital, wrapped in gauze, breathing through an oxygen mask. His eyes fluttered open only when Margaret whispered his name. The vet said it was touch and go. Smoke inhalation, dehydration, muscle trauma. But the real damage, she suspected, was deeper, tucked somewhere in the chest of a dog who'd already lived through more than most soldiers. And then came the shadows. Not everyone saw Rex as a hero. Insurance agents showed up to investigate the fire. There were whispers that maybe the blaze was started intentionally, that maybe Rex's involvement had complicated things, that maybe a retired K9 shouldn't have been loose at all. Margaret overheard a city official muttering, "This complicates liability. There'll be questions, questions." She wanted to scream. The only question that mattered was, why aren't more people like him? Still, the mood shifted. Online, people debated. Was it safe to let retired police dogs roam in neighborhoods? Should Margaret have been allowed to adopt him at all? Even as donations poured in for Rex's recovery, headlines turned cold. Hero or hazard? The debate over retired K9 South and civilian homes. Margaret turned off the TV. She sat beside Rex's kennel, held his paw, and whispered, "They're scared of things they don't understand. But I'm not. I know who you are." Rex blinked, and Margaret, despite the weight of it all, smiled. "Let them talk. We've got bigger things to do." The following week was a blur of antiseptic smells and low, humming machines. Rex wasn't improving. He ate less, slept more, and when he did wake, he didn't lift his head, just flicked his tail once, faintly, when Margaret spoke his name. The vet gave her that look one morning, the kind that doesn't need words. "We're doing everything we can," the young doctor said softly. "But he's tired." Margaret nodded, blinking hard. Her hands trembled as she traced the scar on Rex's muzzle. The one he got from saving a hostage years ago. The one he wore like a badge. That evening, she curled up on the floor of the recovery room. Beside him, her back aching against the cold tile, she held his paw all night, whispering stories only the two of them knew. Of long walks, of silent, starlit evenings, of neighbors who once crossed the street in fear, but who now left flowers on her doorstep with notes that read, He's a true hero. Morning crept in slowly. Rex stirred. Just once. His amber eyes opened, and for the briefest moment he looked at her the way he always had. Not like a pet, not like a dog, but like a partner. Margaret leaned in. "It's okay," she whispered. "You did enough. More than anyone ever asked. If you're tired, you can go." Rex's chest rose, fell, and then, gently, it didn't rise again. Margaret didn't cry at first. She just sat there, eyes closed, her forehead against his. A nurse peeked in, then quietly stepped out to give her space. When the sob finally came, it sounded like it didn't belong to a woman but to something broken open by loss. The kind of sound that only comes from saying goodbye to a soul who saved you again, and again without ever asking why. 3 days later, the sun finally came out. The house was too quiet. No nails clicking on hardwood. No shadowed form watching from the window. No warm breath at her side when she read in the evening. Margaret had washed Rex's blanket, folded it, tucked it into the cedar chest at the foot of her bed. But she couldn't close the lid, not yet. That morning, when she opened the front door to check the weather, she found something out on the porch. A small, plain envelope. No stamp, no address, just her name, written in careful block letters, Margaret Reynolds. Inside was a single page, typed, "Dear Ms. Reynolds, on behalf of the 18th District and the K-9 Honor Fund, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude for giving Rex the retirement he truly deserved. We followed his story, his heroism, his years of service, and the peace he found with you. You should know that Rex's legacy is already saving more lives. With your permission, we would like to honor him during the annual Hero Dog Memorial. A plaque, a story, a reminder to others of what loyalty looks like. You gave him something we couldn't, a home, a quiet place to be more than just a badge. Thank you. With respect, Lt. Sarah McCoy, 18th K-9 Unit." Margaret reread the letter 3 times. Then she placed it gently on the kitchen table and sat down with her tea, staring at the blank space. Where Rex would have normally curled up near her feet, she didn't smile, not yet, but she whispered, "To the air, they remember you, boy, just like I do." Spring came early that year. The cherry tree in Margaret's backyard bloomed in soft waves of white and pink, its petals drifting like confetti across the grass. Beneath it stood something new, a small wooden bench, weather-sealed and sturdy, with a brass plaque on its backrest. It read, "In memory of Rex, loyal partner, beloved friend." He watched, he waited, he stayed. It had been a month since Rex passed, and still, neighbors came. Children tiptoed to read the inscription. Old friends brought biscuits and laid them on the bench. A retired officer named Dan sat quietly. One afternoon, wiping his eyes with the back of his sleeve, Margaret came out each morning with a cup of tea and sat under the tree. Sometimes people joined her, sometimes they didn't, but always Rex was there, in the silence that no longer felt empty, in the breeze that rustled the petals at her feet, in the way her hand occasionally reached for the space beside her and stayed there, resting gently on the bench, as if it still belonged to someone. One afternoon, a little girl with a purple backpack wandered over. She climbed onto the bench and sat next to Margaret, swinging her legs. "Did he really save people?" she asked. Margaret nodded. "He did, every single day." The girl tilted her head. "Even when he got old, especially then," Margaret said softly, "because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay." The girl was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a small, plastic dog toy, well worn and missing one ear. "I want him to have this," she said, placing it beside the plaque. Margaret didn't speak. She just smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. This was the final chapter of Rex's story, one of service, sanctuary, and silent strength.